The world is full of noise, and all too often, that noise attempts to drown out the message of hope that moms so desperately need to hear.
It is our calling to help you reach this level of freedom, to understand who you were created to be, and to walk fully in your purpose. From daily routines to slaying giants, we're going to talk about things that matter, help you find a balance that works for you, and tackle mindsets that hold you back.
We craft each episode to speak to a specific challenge in motherhood, leaving you feeling inspired and equipped with tools to make changes that will propel you on the path to your calling. We are about purpose, identity, and freedom. I'm Dr. Baylis.
And I'm Jackie Bailey, and this is Point of Decision.
Welcome. Charity is with us today. We are so excited about this because Charity is a nanny of 9 years, and she turned baby sleep consultant, and she is the owner and founder of Baby Sleep Journey. She helps tired moms and babies overcome one of the most common struggles that new parents face: sleepless days and nights. Creating and implementing sleeping strategies that work and helping babies get more restful and restorative sleep is one of her greatest passions. I am so excited to have you, Charity, because this is something that Jackie and I both need. We've talked about it. So welcome to the show.
Yes. Welcome, Charity.
Thank you.
So good to have you here. I am personally looking forward to this more than I can even explain because I want my bed back. I'm a co-sleeper parent with my husband and our almost 3-year-old, and I am so ready to have my bed back.
And I just want a break in the middle of the day.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah. So, Charity, I'm so happy to have you. So just tell us a little bit about your journey. And you said you are a nanny of 9 years, and then you started sleep consulting because you've had success with the kids that you've nannied.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. This is such a great experience. For the last 9 years, like you said, I have been a full-time nanny with babies that were mostly under 2 years old. So I've spent a lot of time and years putting babies to sleep for naps, and also helping their families understand how to get them sleeping through the night. Because as a nanny, I wasn't there during the night much, but I had to kind of coach the moms how to overcome the struggles that they're having at nighttime. After a few years of just working with different families and different babies, I really started to understand how common the sleep struggles really were. I would talk to other moms, the parks that I would go to and on play dates, and they would just tell me how their naps were horrible and how their babies would wake up throughout the night. And I was just constantly giving different pieces of advice. And it really was from that point that I knew there was a true need for some guidance in this area. I also knew that over the years I had really figured out certain strategies and systems to overcome those struggles. The babies that I took care of, they had learned to sleep through the night and they were taking amazing naps. And as I got older, I had them ask me for their naps. So I even took a video one time. This is kind of a funny story of, I think she was 2.5 at the time, probably. I had picked her up from a Montessori that she was going to. And we got in the car, buckled her up, and before we left, she said, "I want to take a nap."
Oh, man, I want to hear those words.
Okay, wait a second. I got to pull out my phone here. I turned around and I put it on her. I said, "What did you say?" She's like, "I want to take a nap." "You want to what?" "I want to take a nap." I'm like, "Okay, we can go do that."
Oh my goodness.
Those
Where
are
have you
coveted
been
words.
all my life, Charity?
I know.
Seriously, I need all the secrets right now. Seriously. This is
So
amazing.
basically, yes, I just decided that I really needed to put, this knowledge into a format that other moms really all over the world honestly could learn from and implement them. And that's kind of where my dream started, and super exciting. And I could talk about this all day. So I love sharing this.
That's amazing.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's just start out at the very beginning. Where do you start? I don't know about you, Dr. Leslie, but I'm just am at a loss. I'm like, I want my daughter to look at me and say, I want a nap. And the only time she ever says that is when she's crying and she's tired and she's sick, and so she's tired. But on a regular day when she's just her normal self, I would love to hear those words come out of her mouth. And I'm sure you would too, wouldn't you?
Oh my gosh. I just tell you, I want to cry every time I hear someone say, oh, just put them down for a nap and get some work done during those hours when they sleep. And I'm like, yeah,
right.
I'm at a loss. I'm just, no, they don't sleep.
Right. And you have a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old. So trying to get them on the same sleep schedule is probably a whole nother topic. I don't know, Charity, how you've worked before with multiples or just a single child, or I'm sure you've done both, but I can imagine that it's very difficult at times to get them on the same sleep schedule unless you are just a baby whisperer and you can help us do that.
Yeah.
You sound like you could be.
Yes.
I like that term. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but I will say, though, it's a lot of juggling, especially when you have two children with that different age range, because, you know, you're talking about putting them on the same, and that doesn't really exist because the 2-year-old really only needs one nap during the middle of the day, and the 6-month-old is going to need probably two naps at 6 months, and they're going to be at different times. So it's just, it's a lot of juggling. So yes, I have 3 steps that I usually go through in this order when someone is asking me how they can improve their baby's sleep. Step 1 is to see the big picture, know what your why is, what issues you're facing, what goals you want, and be clear on why this is going to improve your life and how this is going to help you. And the second one is to lay a healthy foundation. There's a few things we can talk about that entails. And one of those, like I mentioned before, is the nap schedules and making sure you know what schedule they should be following based on their ages. And then the third one is to have clear communication and follow a good sleep plan to be able to teach them how they can start to go to sleep on their own and they can develop that skill without needing your help.
Yeah, that is awesome.
The first one is the issues and goals. So maybe we can talk about whether you can share with me what maybe some of the struggles are for you guys.
Awesome.
Personally, we have our almost 3-year-old in a preschool, and she is currently refusing to sleep during the day at school. But as soon as we pick her up, it is lights out. She is passed out in the back seat of the car, and we walk her into the house, and she just refuses to wake up for literally at least an hour to 2 hours. So she's going from having a nap before preschool started ever. She was having a nap in between like noon to 1-ish. And now she's sleeping from, say, 3 till 5 sometimes, which sets her whole evening off on the wrong foot. And then she's up all night. She needs to be cuddled and snuggled before she'll fall asleep for us. And that could be anywhere between 10, 11 o'clock at night. Some bad nights, not till midnight. And then we have to try and wake her up again in the morning. We do an awful, angry, frustrated, just there in the morning. So we wanna streamline the morning too by figuring out this whole sleep thing. So please, any like perfect secrets you have, we're ready for them.
Yes. The one thing about the naps, especially for those who are in a preschool, is there's not much control that you have over the nap situation when they're there. Now, you can do all, that you can to have them really, really try to get her to nap whenever they have their nap times. But, if it's just something that she's refusing to do, there's probably not a whole lot that you can control with that. However, you do have control of the rest of the day and the evening and the night. In that situation, there are a couple of things I would say. You have 2 options. You can let her take a nap after she gets home from school if she absolutely needs it, and just know that in that case, her bedtime is probably going to be slightly later because she took a late nap. And then the other option is to not really allow her to take a nap or to take a really short one. So if you get home and she absolutely has to sleep, she can sleep, but wake her up after probably no more than an hour, I would say, if you don't want her to be staying up much later in the night. And then you can have a decent, normal bedtime.
Mm-hmm.
Leslie, we were going to send this straight to my husband, Isaac. So like you can hear from the mouth of the sleep expert. Short nap, if not any nap at all.
Yeah.
I know when Ezra goes to his grandparents, sometimes he won't take a nap. And so because it's just such a struggle, and I just keep him up when I get him late, and I say, I'm sorry, you have to do something that he wants to be involved in, and he can be involved in getting dinner. And then our evening routine is so structured. We had to do that. We had to structure our evening routine. And then his bedtime becomes more like 7:30 rather than 8, which makes the morning a little bit earlier, but it seems to go better in the evening too if I don't let him sleep that late.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. And for a baby that has done really well for the first 2 years of their life and has been on a schedule and has slept consistently, it's easier for them to go to grandma's house and still take a nap because they have just become this like super great sleeper, or they love their sleep, or it's not such a huge deal. But maybe for some that it's been a little bit more kind of up in the air and they haven't really gotten used to that stricter routine, then yeah, like you said, you just got to do what you got to do. Keep them up and then put them to bed earlier.
Yes, definitely.
So I know that when we were talking a little bit, because you've been helping me with my sleep issues with my kids because they take really short naps. And you asked me the question, because I told you that I tried to let my oldest, I tried to let him cry it out, but he's so strong-willed, he would just make himself sick. And then I emotionally couldn't handle it. And then with my daughter, who's 6 months now, most of the time she will go to sleep after a while, but sometimes it's a little bit of a crying fight. And I said to cry it out to me means to go in and hug her, say I love her, and then walk out. And it just seems to perpetuate the issue. So my question was, what do you say about that? What is actually crying it out? What is like healthy? Because I know for moms, for me, is the emotional, it's like I'm going through trauma here, listening to my baby just have a fit, and I'm scared that she's going to feel abandoned and all of it, because I'm in inner healing, right? So I work with all these people that have abandonment issues. And, and I'm like, I don't want to do that to my kids, but it's better than I'm not crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, that is, honestly, it's one of the terms that drives me crazy with being a sleep consultant, because everybody uses it so differently. And I'm not sure where it started or how it got misconstrued. There are basically 3 different bigger picture kinds of methods that you can go with when it comes to teaching your babies, sleep training them, which just means that they're learning independent sleep and they don't need help from you to fall asleep anymore. That's kind of the whole purpose behind sleep training. And so there are 3 different methods. There's super gentle methods, which allow a lot of picking up and rocking still and like holding and laying on the floor by the crib, just things like that. And then there's like a middle of the road methods, which are generally known as intervals or timed check-in methods, more like what you were saying that you did with your 6-month-old, where you leave her for a little bit and you go in and tell her it's okay, console her a little bit, and then you leave the room again. And then there are the more hands-off method, which would be the cry it out or the extinction. And I think that's where it gets confused. People use the term cry it out to mean if there's any crying involved at all, they say cry it out. When in all reality, cry it out and extinction are one method in and of itself, which means you put them in the room, shut the door, and you don't go back in, period. They cry it out until they go to sleep.
Okay.
So that is, I think, one of the biggest misunderstandings about what all of that means. So yes, it's great to kind of clear that up. And I have to clear that up a lot when I start. The 3rd step of this process is the sleep plan. So having people understand what all of that actually means. Yeah.
So what do you think would be, you said number 1 is recognizing the issue, having your goal, and having realistic expectations. So from your experience, what would be realistic expectations?
So that's a really great question. I find there's different expectations and there's expectations in two different areas that sometimes get misunderstood. One of them is the expectation that I don't want my baby to be crying ever, which is not realistic.
Right.
They're going to cry because they don't understand what's happening, and that's the only language that they have. And they're letting me know that things are weird and they're not sure what they think about it. That is one thing. And then the other unrealistic expectation is that I think when people hear the term sleeping through the night, sometimes they think that means the baby's not going to wake up at night at all, which also is not true. Sleeping through the night actually means that when they wake up, because they will, we as adults wake up multiple times through the night. Everybody does. It's just our brains know automatically go back to sleep. It's nighttime.
Right.
Right.
So they are still learning, even after you have worked with them on sleep training, that what's happening in the middle of the night. So even though they may have been sleep trained and know how to go back to sleep on their own, that doesn't mean that they don't wake up. It just means that when they wake up, they may fuss or cry for a couple minutes and, squirm around. They're trying to figure it out, but they will go back to sleep on their own without your help.
That makes sense.
So that's what sleeping through the night means. Yeah.
So if sleeping through the night, if they do wake up, or when they do wake up, me picking up the baby, nursing her, and putting her back down would not be sleeping through the night versus letting her just work it out for a little while. Is that right? Or
so another thing too is that is right if your baby does not need to eat during the night anymore. So you can still feed, though, like for instance, a 4 or 5 month old can technically be sleeping through the night, even though they still need to eat. And that's fine because they will wake up because they need to eat, and you will determine, ahead of time with your doctor or whoever it is, how many times that they still need to eat at night. But let's just say, for example's sake, that it's, one time a night. You would determine, okay, she ate last at 9 o'clock. I'm going to feed her when she wakes up after 1 in the morning. So when she wakes up after 1, you feed her, you put her down, and then that's it. So technically, yes, you still can, if your baby still requires a feed at night, you still can feed. And then they still would be considered sleeping through the night as long as the whole rest of the night you're not having to feed them more than necessary, or you're not going in there and helping them back to sleep at any other time.
My mom is a neonatal intensive care nurse, and when they wake up and move around and cry a little bit, they said that they call that scooching. She's like, oh, she's just scooching, let her work it out.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I haven't heard that term, though. That's kind of a good one.
I think it's a New York term.
I would have thought that would be like a more southern term, scutchin.
It works.
maybe not so much New York, but that's interesting that it's a New York term.
Yeah, she works in New York. So I've never heard it being from the South.
Yeah.
We don't call it that, but then she's like, oh, she's just scutching. So setting up realistic expectations, is that an individual thing per your baby and you kind of like work one-on-one with people with that? Or is that kind of an overarching, generally speaking, here's realistic expectations? Because my son, who's 2 now, is so drastically different from the other 3 of my kids. I have 4 total. And the other 3, I haven't had the same issues that I've had with him. And his emotional decision making will put him into a frenzy that my other ones would have worked through.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it does have a little bit of a personal touch. When I work with people, I do make sure they take into consideration their child's personality, because that's really what it is. It's, one child may put up more of a fight, whereas the other one won't. So if, let's say, your first baby was really easy and they were more mellow and you sleep trained them and they learned really quick and there wasn't a whole lot of crying, you may have that expectation for your second child, but that might not be realistic, because if they're more spirited or more stubborn,
yes,
it will look a little bit different. There are things that do stay the same regardless, but the reactions that come from the babies will vary, and learning how to be okay with that is a big thing.
Yes, I definitely needed you 2 years ago. I'm so glad I found you now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what does it look like to lay a healthy foundation, and what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so there are 3 main topics on laying a foundation. So once you've, determined what the issues are that you want to work on, what your goals are. You want them to, be able to sleep through the night, waking up maybe one time to feed, or you want to cut out feeds, or you want them to take longer naps. Once you kind of have that settled in and you feel like it's the right expectation, like we were talking about, then you can move on to the healthy foundation, which the first one is making sure that the bedroom environment is the right environment for sleeping. Mm-hmm. This is a big one, in my opinion. It's one of the first things I always ask when someone especially is asking me about naps. I ask, where are they sleeping? Is the room dark? Is it quiet? So it's three things. So yeah, a relaxing bedroom environment is like super important. It's really funny because I like to call it a myth that floats around that I hear off and on. When you talk about like a dark room or white noise, you'll have people that will kind of say in return, well, if you put your baby to sleep in a bright environment with noises, then they'll get used to it and they should be able to sleep anywhere.
I've heard that.
I know
Yeah.
You guys have heard that, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Totally. Yeah. And so I think, I don't know where this comes from, but when your babies are really, really young, before 4 months old, you may encounter that. Most of the time, a newborn will sleep anywhere. You could be holding them, they could be in the car seat, you could be out shopping, and they'll just fall asleep. But what happens is after 4 months, their brains are shifting, their sleep cycles are shifting, and they just become much more aware of their surroundings, and they're very easily distracted. So for most babies, from that point forward, from about 4 months forward, they will sleep best if they're in a dark, quiet space. For the same reasons that we as adults, if we were trying to take a nap during the day, we would need a very dark, quiet space.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Right. Diane is 6 months old now, and our bedrooms are not as dark, and it's quiet, but it's not that dark.
Right. And that's another expectation thing. I want my baby to be able to sleep anywhere. That expectation is not really a good one.
Right.
Right.
Because it's just asking more of them than for most babies can happen. And I say most because there are exceptions. There's always exceptions to the rule. There will be a baby who just happens to be like a knockout sleeper that can sleep through anything. But that doesn't mean, like we talked about earlier, that doesn't mean that the next one will be that way. And in general, they're not that way. So it's important to set them up for success by that environment. And then the second one, the second part for a healthy foundation is following a simple bedtime routine every time they go to sleep, whether it's for naps or for nighttime. They will thrive on predictability and routines. So when it comes to sleeping, like they pick up on things pretty quickly. So when you walk into their room and it's dark and you turn on the white noise machine and, you swaddle them if they're small or they're in a sleep sack, and you sing them a song, just those little things pick up on much quicker than I think we give them credit for. So using that every time you put them to sleep, it'll signal to them what's coming, and it starts to help them get into that zone and to relax. And then the next one is just appropriate schedules and wake windows. This can be a challenging one because every few months, how long they stay awake or how long their nap should be and that sort of thing kind of changes based on their age. So for instance, a 4 to 7 month old will take 3 naps, a 8 to 14 month old will take 2, and then from that on they'll take 1. So just keeping yourself educated and making the appropriate adjustments for their age on their schedule is the last point. So those 3 things, environment, routines, and schedules is how you lay that good foundation.
That's awesome. So I have an issue that I'm wondering how to fit this in. So my family dynamic, I have a 16-year-old son that's busy. So a lot of times the nap schedules will be this is probably one of the reasons we're having problems is their nap schedules will be interrupted because I have to get my son somewhere at 2:00 and I'm the one that has to take him there. And for him to get there by 2, we have to leave by 1:30, which is their nap time. And so I'll revert to, okay, well, we're going to have to leave and drive around a little bit so they can sleep in the car so they can have a nap.
Right.
And that's one of the issues that I'm coming up with, which they will sleep in the car, but I would love to have that just, okay, well, you need to schedule your life around the baby's naps. And that's just not realistic for me either. So what do you say about that?
Nobody wants to be a slave to naps. And especially in in your case where you have older children and multiple children, it's just not realistic to always be able to be at home for every nap for the length of time that they need to nap. So you are right in that. When I am first working with someone who's trying to get their baby to learn, that skill of independent sleep, I usually tell them, you need at least like a good week, preferably 2, of like getting them used to napping in their bed at the right times for the right lengths, if possible, as many times as you can doing that. Now, after that, you have to adjust with your life. And so if they have to take a nap one day in the car seat, that's fine.
Okay.
But the more that you can be consistent with it while you are home and do your best to protect their naps when possible is good. And, you have a 6-month-old. I don't know, is she taking 3 naps still?
Yeah, she still takes 3 naps, but they're not very long usually. So every once in a while she'll have a long nap, but
right. And so, the 3 nap days are the hardest in my opinion, because you really do feel like, I can't leave the house, or I'm going to screw something up if I leave the house. Once it gets to 2 naps, it tends to be a little bit easier to kind of juggle, time frames and things like that. But especially for that 3 nap phase, you just got to do what you can.
No, that's awesome, because I'm sitting here thinking, well, I'm starting to potty train my 2-year-old. So I'm like, okay, the same 2 weeks, we're going to sleep train and potty train.
Right, exactly. And I will say too, as far as taking the naps, I feel like the first nap of the day is like one of the most important ones to get to be home and to get like a solid, good first nap. Okay. And the other ones you can kind of play with if need be.
What is considered a good, solid first nap?
Well, it depends on the age too. But I guess for you, for 3 naps, it's probably, an hour would be a good length for her, I think. Yeah. An hour and a half would be great, but an hour for a 6-month-old, I think, is a good nap. Right. Because that's still 3 hours of naps during the day. If they're all an hour, if one's like 30 minutes, that might be a problem.
Well, we have that.
But yeah, exactly. Then you would hope that one might be a little longer than an hour. A 30-minute nap, I would say, would be too short if it happened quite often during the day. But if it's like one nap's an hour, one's 30 minutes, one's an hour, it would still be okay. But if it's 30-minute naps, every nap all day, we might need to work on something there.
Okay, so yes, I definitely need to work on something. She does not like to sleep as long. And it could be that the room is not dark enough, I guess, to get through the sleep cycle. Because she'll go to sleep, but then she won't stay asleep.
Usually at that age, it is an environment thing, or it could be a schedule thing as well, because you want to make sure that they aren't tired enough, undertired, or overtired. So getting it in that right window for her age is key.
That's awesome. Thank
you. So I have
you.
a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Just kind of on the lines of environment, just for our listeners and for ourselves, what are some things that could just obstruct the environment for a really healthy sleep schedule in a room? Especially so, for instance, for myself and my husband, we're co-sleeping. So in the same room, we're moving her to her toddler bed in the same room right now. But what could be some things that are obstructing that good environment that sets them up for a great night's sleep?
Well, okay, night is a little bit different because it's already dark. Hopefully there's not, lights on and things around. But, the darkest you can get it for both naps and for nighttime is best. It also changes based on their age. So sometimes 3-year-olds start being afraid of the dark and things like that. And so you may not have to have the room quite as dark at that age as you would want to when they were 5-6 months old, because a 5 or 6 month old, they like the dark. They don't get afraid of the dark, whereas a 3-year-old might be.
Right.
So it does vary. In general, like a dark room is always best. And especially for the young ones, the 5 and 6, by dark, I mean like hang the blackout curtains, tape construction paper to the windows, whatever you have to do to make it like super dark, the darker the better. Sometimes moms think that's so strange, but I promise you, if you try it, usually it works like a charm.
That's good to know.
That is.
Yeah, so that, and then any kind of noises that you can eliminate. You obviously, if you're in a house with other people and other kids, there's going to be distractions, but that's why I really recommend a white noise machine of some kind, because it just makes a huge difference so that they're not able to pick out every single little noise that's happening around them.
That makes sense.
Awesome.
So those are the two biggest things I would say for that.
Awesome. Okay, so what about step number 3, clear communication and a sleep plan?
So once you define your goals and you set those expectations and you lay that foundation, then it's go time to really get clear on your communication, how you're going to begin to follow with a sleep plan and help them learn that they can get to sleep without you. And so I would say there's 5 keys to a super solid sleep plan. And that is that the sleep plan should teach them independent sleep, meaning they're able to fall asleep in their crib without help from you. Doing that in a 24-hour approach, meaning you do it with nights. You start with nights first, and then you move to naps the next day. And so when you're teaching them that they can fall asleep without being rocked or held or all those things at night, and then you do the same thing for naps, and you just continue that process from then on out. And then following the age-appropriate schedules during the day so that you ensure that their naps are happening at the right times. And then the bedtime routines are also predictable as well. Being consistent with, this is a big one, being consistent with your communication in response to when they need fed at night, when they wake up and they cry and they don't actually, need anything, but they're just crying. During the night, and then how you're going to respond to short naps when they have woken up from a nap that's much shorter than they should be taking. Mm-hmm. And then tracking your progress, because a good sleep plan will you're going to make progress within a few days, and it should produce the results that you're looking for. So let me talk real quick about that one point that says be consistent with your communication. This is where those 3 points the 3 methods that I mentioned earlier are the ways that you choose to respond to the cries that happen as they're trying to learn this. And so you have to kind of decide which one is right for me based on my baby's age, based on their personality, and based on how my comfort level, with hearing, crying, and things like that. So the super gentle methods where there's a lot of interaction and, picking up and staying in the room, those can work, and they mostly only work for babies with really low-key personalities. Mm-hmm. And when they're very young. If someone decides they want to help their baby learn to fall asleep at 4 and 5 months, I would say that they could try one of the more gentler, approaches to it and see how it goes. And it might work for them. It might not, but, there's probably a 50-50 chance
right.
At that age. Right. Now, my favorite one, and the one that I use the most, is the middle of the road one, which is the doing check-in. This is the one that I teach. And, there are things about the way that I've structured it that are slightly different from a lot of the other intervals or check-in plans that are out there. But basically taking into consideration your baby's personality and how comfortable you are with levels of crying. You decide on a time, let's just say it's 10 minutes. You are okay with letting them be in there, crying a little bit, trying to figure it out, and then you would go into their room and console them and tell them you love them, make sure, like you mentioned before, they're not being abandoned, you're there, and then you walk out, and then you time it again. And you just do that as many times as it takes for them to get the message. There's obviously more variance in there, but that's like the basics. And then there's the other approach of leaving them in there, shutting the door, and then letting them figure it out. And that is not one that I usually suggest without trying at least the time check-ins first, because most of the time you can get results from a method like the time check-ins where you're still a part of the process and you're still going in and they're still being consoled, from you in those intervals. But that being said, there have been situations where that has not worked, and there's been a baby that's maybe older. The older they get, closer to 2, the more that the check-ins seem to really make them more upset and more angry.
Yes.
Yeah. And especially if you have a very spirited, which is my favorite word to use, yes. Spirited child. Yeah.
which we
It
both
was
do.
like,
Yes,
It was
yes, we
not-
both have very spirited children.
yeah. They like it can get them more worked up, and so sometimes you have to be a little bit more spirited with your approach with them as well. Just tell them how it is, and you put them in the room, and then they just have to kind of learn in their own process. Because the more that you try to be involved, the more angry they get.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, it doesn't usually take. It's not usually as bad as most parents think it's going to be when we've done this method in the past. It's always more worked up, in everyone's head to be a bigger ordeal than it. And then typically it happens to be. And I would say probably the most that I've had anyone tell me that their baby has cried when I've suggested to do this specific method was about 30 minutes. And then
wow.
they got the hint.
My 2-year-old, that wasn't the case. So I don't try that method anymore because he got himself so worked up, and it was just it just did not work for him. But he, like I said, he's a spirited one. He's very, very strong-willed, knows what he wants, and it will send him into a full frenzy where he'll be it's just not a pretty picture. And then I'm crying, he's crying, we're all crying, and then
oh my gosh. And like I said though, I don't typically work with 2 and older, so it's been maybe, I think it was 18 months around that age range that I've had to do that with. And so the older they get, the harder it is, and the less that would actually go well.
17, 18 months is when we were trying that. It didn't work for us at that age. But when he was younger, he slept pretty good, but he will rock to sleep. He will now. There was a period of time where he was fighting everything, but I guess it was a regression period maybe. And that was also when his sister entered the picture. So
exactly.
He was 18 months old when she was born. So, everything was kind of in an uproar at 18 months old for him.
Yeah, and one more point that I just want to point out really quick. There's another, I like saying these myths sometimes because there's another one that pops out, along these lines. And it's that eventually babies will just learn on their own how to sleep well. And that, it's true. Well, they'll learn how to sleep, but how to sleep well, maybe not.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so, and the truth really is just that, sleep is a skill, and it's a skill that is developed properly when we allow for the sleeping opportunities at the right time and in the right environment. So the earlier that you can start really focusing in on putting them in the right environment at the right time and teaching them that skill, the better they're going to sleep as they get older.
That makes sense. So I can't remember which point it was, 1 or 2 in this third step, that I had the question come up. So we are going to be moving in the next month. And so is it beneficial to begin a sleep training routine knowing that a transition is about to happen? So we're considering all of this when we're doing the potty training as well. But in the middle of a transition, it kind of disrupts everything. So would it be better to wait until we've made that transition? Or would it be better to really focus and then make the transition and then refocus?
I normally, in an instance like that, where it's kind of a big move, I would say to just wait and do it once you've moved, because you could do it before, but you really are going to have to do it again.
Okay.
After you move. So do you want to do it twice, or do you really just want to kind of get through it and then do it once and for all once you're there?
That makes sense. Okay. Thank you. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's had to come in contact with this. All of our military families out there got to move whenever they say.
Exactly. No, yeah, that is a good point. I've actually been working with babies, nannying with babies who have moved, and it is a whole process. So yeah, it's usually better to just wait.
Okay. Okay. So Jackie, do you have any other questions?
Yes.
This is so great. Charity, awesome. Thank you.
Seriously.
Yes,
I'm
glad you like.
The only question that I would be wondering is, we're co-sleepers. I know Chris and Leslie have been co-sleepers as well.
Mm-hmm.
What's the biggest tip for co-sleepers to get the baby into their own bed?
It also depends on the age, because if you've been co-sleeping, I know yours are 3 or older, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Shalom will be 3 next month. Yeah.
Okay. So the way you would do that is very different depending on their age. But if they're younger, you would basically just move them to their crib and start following a sleep training plan all at the same time. You move them to their crib and then you just start teaching them how to learn how to fall asleep on their own. Now, if they're older, I'm just going to throw a caveat out there. I don't normally work with babies over 2. So
right.
You can take this advice, as you want. It might not work the best, but I have transitioned in the past a baby that I was working with from a crib into a toddler bed. And it was quite an interesting process. But what I did was basically, once they put her in there, I had to, at this point, obviously they can talk, so they understand what you're telling them. So when you put them in their bed for night, you have to just explain to them, this is where you're going to be sleeping now. And she had her own room at the time. So I would put her in bed, do the whole, good night thing, walk out of the room. And then, I have a video monitor. And if you're did you say you were in the same room? She's going to be sleeping in the same room. Okay. So it might have to go slightly different for you because you're in there, unless she's going to bed before you and you can actually leave the room. So I'm not sure. Would she be going to bed before you?
That would be the plan, ultimately, for her to go to bed a couple hours before us. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so then it would work similar to this. If you have a video monitor, that's what I use because I wanted to see when she got out of her bed. And I immediately went back in the room and said, no, you have to stay in your bed. It's nighttime. It's time to go to sleep. Do that whole thing. Leave the room. I sat by the door and waited. I probably had to do that 30 times.
Oh, wow.
Right.
The very first time that, she was learning. So it's a process and it's going to take some patience, but she got it. And then every time I put her to bed, I did the same thing. And it got less and less times that she would try to get out until she really understood that, okay, this is what's happening.
Right.
And so, that would be my biggest tip for trying it and to see how it goes.
Okay.
But again, I'm sure there are people out there who have a lot more experience with toddlers than I do, but that would be my suggestion. And it works for me. So
yes.
No, that's
we
great.
Appreciate any suggestions that we can get for sure.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. What we've done is we are technically co-sleepers even still because co-sleeping is like, it's a very wide definition. And so what we wound up doing, we did have them in a separate room. Yeah. But what we wound up doing, what seems to work for us at this age, is we moved the toddler bed and the baby bed into our room. So they're each in their own bed, in their own space, but they have access to us if they need us, and they go to bed before we do. So Ezra will not fall asleep on his own necessarily unless he's just wiped out. And we will rock him, but he's gotten to the point where but we enjoy that. We enjoy that process of rocking him to sleep. We read books and say, okay, it's time for night, and he will go to sleep. There was a time where he was fighting us, but now he'll just rock to sleep. We put him in his bed. We put his sister in her bed. They can hear each other, but they can't touch each other necessarily yet. And then when they wake up, they might crawl into bed with us. And so that seems to have worked for us because we've got to have some time at night for our marriage. Yeah. And I know a lot of times when you get to this point, like for me, the nap times thing is just like, I've got to have a few minutes to myself if I'm going to be a halfway decent mom. Yep. So the nighttime thing, that putting them to bed in their own bed, even if it's in the same room, has really helped us.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And you're right. I'm not here to help everyone. Like some people are doing things the way they want to do it. Some people co-sleep and they like co-sleeping, and that's great. Some people are like, I've been sleeping with my baby for 5 months. I am exhausted. I need my sleep. So everybody has to do what works the best for them, but helping those moms that have gotten to that point, like you said, where I need some time at night, like time to myself. I need some time for my husband. I need some time for my other children, all of those things. And most of the time, those first 2 steps and what I talked about, you can find a lot of information about how to get your baby to sleep online if you're a good researcher and you have the time and you have the patience. But when it really comes to like that full on like plan, I just see so many moms get stuck in knowing how to put all the pieces together. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm here.
Yes. So you have developed, I think you call it the sleep roadmap, right?
Yep. It's a sleep training roadmap. Yep.
And you've developed this course for me. You developed it for me. And so how can moms get a hold of this course that is life-giving in this season of our kids really need to go to sleep?
Yeah, of course. So I have a website, so you always can go on there and just read about the plans that I have, what it includes, how it works. Basically, my format is that there is the roadmap that you download and you have the plan to follow, and then it comes with unlimited support from myself via email or a Facebook group where you can get all of the support that you need to ask me your questions as you're starting to go through the process and when you're running into roadblocks and things like that. I'm here for you. I didn't want to create something that was just like, okay, here it is. Now you have it. Now figure it out. Even though I am very proud of what is in there and that it works. And, moms have had great success when they follow the plan, but everybody's different. And I know that questions come up and everybody needs a place to go when that happens. So it comes with support from me. But my website is babysleepjourney.com. So you can go on there and just read about those. I also have a Facebook page and group that you can join if you want to join the group and have conversations in there. There's about 500 moms in there right now, so it's super fun. I get asked questions every day from moms about their sleep struggles, and then the Facebook page as well. You can find that if you search Baby Sleep Journey in Facebook. It should come up. Baby Sleep Journey Tribe is what the group is called.
And I'll link to that in the show notes as well, so that anybody who listens to this show can go into the notes and click on these links and join that Facebook community. I am a part of that community. I'm really, really happy about that. That's how we connected. So it is really an awesome community and supportive group of moms that are just, I've found that you can safely ask your questions without judgment.
Yes. Yeah. And that was my hope for doing that. I feel like there's a lot of groups out there where, people are giving advice, but I've just found so much advice that is really off track. So I was like, I want to give them a space where they can have support from someone who's been down that road and, not just with my own kids, but with lots of kids. So yeah, I love it. I love the community.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you, Charity, so much for sharing all of your expertise on this. It's just really been a journey for you, I'm sure, and it's a journey for us going on it. And we really need this roadmap. I know for me to go visit Jackie in California when she was in Canada, I had to use my GPS to get there. I couldn't just get there. Yes. So this is really good resource for us to have. And I just really appreciate you taking the time to put it together for us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I've had a lot of fun with it, and it's been great to chat with you guys. And thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you for being brave, for having your mind and heart open to receive what we've shared.
We pray that it touches you so deeply that you are transformed from the inside out.
If you've loved spending time with us as much as we have with you, we have great news for you.
We have a tribe of other moms just like you that are committed to living life to the fullest and are a source of encouragement, support, and love.
Go to Point of Decision on Facebook now to join our growing tribe.
I'm Dr. Leslie Baylis.
And I'm Jackie Bailey.
We love you.
We're praying for you.
And we are looking forward to spending more time with you on Point of Decision.